Episode 46, Shadow of the Empire. Upon returning to the Ivory Spire, Ryan's party was treated as heroes. They had dealt a significant blow to Valerius's army, and on top of that, had recovered the second fragment of the void. Master Aelio and the elders praised their accomplishments and promised their full support for the journey ahead. The tracking magic, now using 2 fragments of the void, became far more precise than before. The mages finally located the 3rd fragment. The 3rd fragment, the Ashes of the Void, is in the heart of the imperial capital, Argentum, Aelio said, his expression grave. To be precise, it is sealed in the Solar Athenaeum, the secret archive in the Imperial Palace that only the Emperor himself can enter. The situation had become far more complicated. Unlike the temple and the swamp, the Imperial capital was the center of living, breathing power. Infiltrating the Imperial Palace was a problem on a whole different level than entering the Ivory Spire. The Empire has become unusually isolationist in recent years, Serafina added, contributing her intel. Since the old Emperor fell ill, the Iron Chancellor, Rowan, has seized all practical power. He is an extreme purist and isolationist, and he is exceptionally wary of outsiders, especially mages. Valerius himself is from an imperial noble family, Green said. There's no way he isn't connected to the Empire's ruling class. Perhaps even that Iron Chancellor. Their uneasy prediction soon became reality. A delegation from the Empire arrived at the Ivory Spire. They carried a personal letter from Chancellor Rowan, and its contents were shocking. We have received intelligence that the Ivory Spire is threatening the world by using forbidden ancient artifacts. Cease all research immediately and turn the artifacts over to the Empire. If you refuse, the Empire will consider the Spire an enemy of humanity and commence military action. It was a clear threat and a declaration of war. Valerius had begun to pressure the Spire, using the Empire as his proxy. Instead of acting himself, he was trying to achieve his goal by inciting a war between nations. The scale of the game had changed. There's only one way to avoid war, Ryan said in the Council of Elders. We must go to the Imperial capital ourselves, prove that this is all Valerius's conspiracy, and persuade the Emperor. Impossible, one of the Elders retorted. With the Chancellor in control of everything, we'll believe our words. That's why we need proof. Ryan's eyes gleamed. And the right person to change the Emperor's mind. He looked at Serafina. She hesitated for a moment, and finally spoke, as if she had made her resolve. My real name is Serafina the Argentum. I am the current Emperor's only daughter. Everyone in the chamber was stunned. She had fled the palace years ago to avoid political marriage to Chancellor Rowan, hiding her identity ever since. The precious thing the Shadow Cult had taken from her was her family and her homeland. I will go and persuade my father myself. But to do that, I must get past Chancellor Rowan's surveillance network and reach the heart of the Imperial Palace. Ryan's game was now set on the stage of the entire Empire. He was no longer a simple thief, stealing relics. He was now at the center of a vast political conspiracy, with the very fate of a nation at stake. Episode 47, Operation Infiltrate the Capital. The road to the Imperial capital, Argentum, was heavily guarded. At every gate, Chancellor Rowan's personal troops, the Obsidian Watchers, were thoroughly inspecting all travelers. It was impossible for Ryan and his companions, once again thought of an outlandish plan. He asked the mages of the Ivory Spire to prepare a massive illusion spell. In a forest near the capital, they intentionally let an Imperial patrol spot them. Just as the patrol was about to surround them, the mage's illusion spell activated. The entire forest transformed into a scene of chaos, with a giant illusory dragon rampaging through it. The patrol, terrified, called for reinforcements, drawing all of the capital's troops and attention to that one spot. Meanwhile, Ryan and his small elite team, Serafina, Alara, and Cypher, used the distraction to quietly infiltrate the city over the least guarded section of the wall on the opposite side, using magical ropes. The capital, Argentum, was a majestic city, but in a different way from Ethereum. It was built more of steel and stone than magic, exuding an atmosphere of orderly oppression. Armored soldiers were stationed everywhere on the streets, monitoring the citizens. A suffocating place, Ryan muttered. Their first objective was to establish a foothold to infiltrate the Imperial Palace. Serafina had said there were still a few noble factions loyal to her. One of them was Duke Alberto, an old but wise man who harbored resentment against Chancellor Rowan's tyranny. They headed for Duke Alberto's manor, but the manor was already surrounded by the Obsidian Watchers. Chancellor Rowan had begun to purge his opposition. Damn it, we're too late. Just then, the sound of fighting erupted from within the manor. A moment later, a group of knights was desperately fighting their way out of the encirclement. At their lead was an old knight, his white hair flying, fighting valiantly. It was Duke Alberto. We have to save the Duke. Ryan and his companions joined the fray without hesitation. Their faces covered with masks, they ambushed the Watchers from behind. The Watchers' ranks broke in confusion from the sudden attack. Duke Alberto and his knights were just barely able to escape the crisis. They fled together into the capital's sewers. Who in the world are you? Duke Alberto asked, gasping for breath. Serafina stepped forward and pulled back the hood that had been covering her face. Do you remember me, Your Grace? Duke Alberto couldn't believe his eyes. Standing before him was the Imperial Princess, Serafina, whom he had thought dead. My princess, you're alive. Tears welled in the old Duke's eyes. In the shadows of the Empire, a spark of hope was beginning to ignite once more.